Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to do a kitting up whip and chat, maybe some de-kitting of my previous whip. So I am doing, this is my next whip. It is the Dragon Girl this is from radiantround.diy.com. This one is a 40 by 50. I thought I would do this for Mystria Diamonds and J. Rob's collaboration. It does have a dragon. So it is a fairy holding a baby dragon. So I'll put the photo up on the screen. So we're going to go ahead and kit this one up, and I'm going to see if I can get through it, because if you see my unboxing, you'll understand why. So while I kit up, I'm just going to chit-chat and whatever's on my mind. So I was also thinking about doing a whip and chat series, get to know me. Maybe I'll go back 40, 45 years from the time I was just a little boy. So I'm going to probably start on that subject. So I'm just going to grab and just work along and chit chat. I hope everybody's weekend is going by great. This is Saturday evening. I did go to work today. I did go to work for about 9 hours, so it was an early night for me. So here, if you don't know, I was born the first day of the second week of June, 1970. So yes, 5 more months, I'll be hitting 51. Boy, oh boy, I don't know where the time has gone by so quick. I still cannot believe I've been out here in Southern Cal for 26 years now. Yeah, wow. Kids are all grown up. Grandbabies are starting to get big. So as I was saying, born June of 1970. Mom was 16. Dad was 19. Yes, very, very young. My parents did end up getting divorced when I was 2 years old. I ended up staying with my grandparents for a few years while I was growing up. I do remember the time I spent with them when I was very, very, very young. Just until, I guess, until my mom got a place. So grew up in a very, very small town in Michigan. It's Highland, Milford area. It's not very well known. It's very, very small. Just concentrating on my numbers here. So yeah, parents were very, very, very young back in the day. So I remember growing up, not much of my dad being around very often. Just me and mom. And then I had a sister that came along. 3 years, I was 3 years old, 3.5. My mom didn't marry my sister's father, thank goodness. He was in the Army. So after he got out, I do believe he went somewhere where they were having a war, or I don't know. I was really, really young. Like I was saying, I was only about 4 years old. But I do remember when he came back from the Army, always in trouble. His family was really, really good. It was just, I don't know, he was just different. Didn't stay around very much, for very long, as I should say. And then Mom got in with the Church of Kingdom Hall, which we all know is Jehovah's Witnesses. So she was very, very young. I don't think she was pretty much 18, 19 years old. They did take really good care. They helped taking care of, got my mom situated into a mobile home. We did live on general assistance growing. We did have pretty much general assistance when we were very, very young. If you don't know what general assistance is from the state, it is pretty much welfare. So in school, we did get free lunches. So that was pretty much a few years there until Mom ended up getting remarried. She married throughout the years. I do believe she got married 5 different times. So, yeah, we moved around quite a bit when I was young. I do believe from the time I was in between 4th grade and 9th grade, I want to say, 8th grade, 9th grade, somewhere in there, I was in 18 different schools. So yeah, we moved around quite a bit. And as being so young, we just do what Mom says. So we did. So we bounced around from place to place. I bounced back and forth between Mom and Dad. And then Dad he did get remarried to my stepmom. I still call her Mom. She will always be Mom. A second mom. She had 2 boys with my father. And once, pretty much when his boys were born, I was non-existent. I used to call and have to beg to go over for the weekend. My stepmom would always come and pick me up. She always wanted me to come and stay the weekend. And my mom never got her license until she was 21, I believe. She was pretty young. Or not pretty young, but she was up there in age before she actually got her license. I think she was 20 or 21. And she ended up getting, her mom bought her first car. It was a Vega, small, two-door. They were pretty popular back then. Not so much nowadays. I don't think I think they stopped making them a few years after we had several. It was a manual shift, so I do remember watching her try to get it up into the driveway, which in the mobile home park we lived in, that I grew up in, she had to jump the sidewalk. The sidewalk wasn't very, very high off the street, but she would always stall it out, getting that first tire up on the sidewalk. And then she would back up, go around the block, try to get some more momentum. Tried it like 5 or 6 times. Finally getting it up in the driveway. Then she never wanted to go anywhere because then, then she had to get up in the driveway again. But as time went on, she got used to it, got better and got better and got better. So, yeah. So, I did grow up until probably middle school with the neighborhood kids. I had a really good friend that lived behind us, and then across the street from him was another friend that we all 3 of us hung out. We were at one of the 3 houses, always. We were always together hanging out. We found one, you found the other 2. Oh yeah. So we all pretty much grew up until junior high school. Then we ended up moving away again. I stayed pretty much to myself growing up. I didn't want to make any new friends. Every time we moved, it was you get a friend and next thing you know, you're moving away. So I just completely stopped becoming friends with anybody for quite a long time. I never spoke until I was spoken to. So I pretty much stayed to myself, pretty much growing up until I got into high school. Joined the football team. Even though we moved around still quite a bit, still went to the same high school. Ended up quitting when I was 16. Went back when I was 17. By then they started, it was called Alternate Adult Ed. Alternative Ed. It was not at the high school. It was in an empty classroom at another middle school. It was for all the kids that pretty much dropped out of high school. So I went back there before I hit 17, and I still graduated on time. I graduated when I was 18. Only a little bit older than most of the kids because my birthday is in June. So we pretty much finished school before my birthday would come around. So I never really got to celebrate my birthday while growing up in school because we were always on summer vacation by then. So even though I got tired of moving, so I ended up getting a job, still put myself through high school, living on my own, I ended up getting my own studio apartment. Moved out when I was 15 years old. I kind of told the landlord that I was renting from that I was 18. So I gave him my birth date of 1968. So he would rent me my studio apartment. And I lived on my own pretty much since throughout the years since then. So I moved out when I was 15 years old. Still continued to go to high school. Like I was saying, I did quit when I was 16. I think it was after the first half of the school year. Started working full time. Went back the next fall. By then I already had my own car. So I could drive myself back and forth to school and to work. I still continued to work part-time. Finished school, like I was saying. Graduated on time with lots of hard work. Then I started working 2 jobs. I always grew up being a hard worker. I always had a job. I never was without work. I'm just kind of fast forwarding throughout the years. It does get quite boring. So did get caught up with a not so good group. I did grow up in a pretty much small town. Not much anything to do. So we would find someone that would buy us alcohol, beer or alcohol. We would go somewhere and sit and just drink, party all the time. Didn't get in any trouble. I stayed out of trouble. Pretty much. And then I just got tired, moved, got a job. It was about an hour and a half from where I grew up. Closer into Detroit. Got a really, really good job. Ended up getting a newer car. Financed my first car ever by myself. And then I met a great couple. They became really good friends. They invited me out to stay for the weekend at their house. I was 19, 20 by then. They became really, really good friends. We always hung out. We always had a great time. So a friend of mine, he was 21, 22. His wife was, I think, a year younger than me. So yeah, her mom had to sign off for them to get married. And they stayed married for quite a long time. So there was the 4 of us. We always hung out because there was another another friend of theirs. He was single. I was single, and there was Darren and Michelle. All of us hung out together all the time on the weekends. Always had great time playing video games, sitting and watching movies, playing cards, anything that we could, that we could have fun doing, staying out of trouble. So I was pretty much in my 20s. Darren, like I was saying, Darren, I think he was 21, 22. Then Gary was the same age, 20, 21, 22. So, and then a while after that, I ended up getting another really good job. Doing apartment maintenance. So I got pretty much, if I lived on site, they gave me half off my rent for being an employee. So I ended up doing that. I had a 1-bedroom apartment. But on the weekends, I didn't work on the weekends except for being on call every 3rd weekend. So, because there was 3 of us that worked there as maintenance. It was a pretty good sized place. We always took turns being on call. So the weekends I was on call, I pretty much stayed home. Because I don't want to have to drive an hour and a half if there was a pipe leak or something. So the weekends I was on call, I pretty much stayed home. But otherwise, I would always drive out and stay with Darren and Michelle every weekend. Gary just lived down the road from Darren and Michelle, so sometimes he would stay, sometimes he wouldn't. And when he stayed, he stayed on the couch. So he had no problems staying out on the couch. I did get the spare room, and then I met my first wife. I knew her through high school. We never got along. I don't know why. I never did or said anything to her, but for some reason, she did not like me one bit through high school. I don't know what it was. I never did anything to her. I really didn't know her that well. But she did hang out with a few people that I knew. So we ended up getting married years and years and years later after high school. I think I was 22 when we got married. She was a year younger than me. So she wasn't 21 yet, because she would drink wine coolers. So I would drink beer back then. I don't drink beer nowadays. I don't need the beer belly. So 33.28. I'm just looking right at it. So, being her husband, she wanted wine coolers, so we went grocery shopping. She got her wine coolers. They would always ask her for ID. I'm like, she's my wife. Here's my ID. It's all good. So we had our first daughter. Actually kind of complicated, but not really. when we got together, she didn't know she was already pregnant. I think we were pretty much a couple 4 months before she realized she was pregnant. So she really didn't want to split up or anything. We talked and we talked and we talked, and we were like, we just like, well, let's just go day by day, see how it goes. So we ended up getting married before. My first daughter is actually my stepdaughter. She has my last name. We got married before she had birth. And I pretty much raised her as my own. Then pretty much 13 months later, second daughter came along. So $38.64. Oh, okay, I'm going backwards. So we end up splitting up. For what reason, I don't know. We ended up moving back into her mom's for some reason. And then probably because she was calling her mom every day and it was long distance, and my phone bill every month was $300. And back then, $300 for a phone bill was quite expensive. So we ended up moving back into her mom's. I know her mom was going through a divorce from her youngest two boys, his father. But she did adult foster care home. So instead of an elderly person going to a group home, their family would pay her the rent and she would take care of them. So she had 3 to 4 elderly living in her home. That was her source of income. That's what she did for a living. So she needed to go through a divorce with her troublemaker husband. But she couldn't be there at the house because he would end up talking her out of it for some reason. So once she started the proceedings, she needed someone to stay at the house to watch the elderly. So that was one reason why we moved back. And I wasn't working at my job for a while. I don't know what I did in my trash bucket. I don't want to go into that mess. So, because I was driving back and forth from work and her mom's. It was an 1.5-hour drive every day. Yeah, that was a big mess. So I got on unemployment that summer. My wife she worked at the local drugstore as a cashier. Her mom stayed with a friend while she got her divorce. And I stayed pretty much at the house taking care of the elderly ladies that were there. I really got to know them. They really enjoyed my company. Because when I was there, all they would do was sit in their room, watch TV. From the time they got up, in between meals, and just sit and watch TV all day until bedtime. So I would be like, oh no. Oh no. We got to get up and moving, stimulate that brain. You ain't gonna grow here and grow old and sit and do nothing all day. So I would bring them out in the dining room, because an adult had to be there at the house at all times. So I ended up staying there, watching it, because I had to cook them breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then my mother-in-law, second child, he was 17, almost 18, 16, 17 years old. So he went to school and he worked. So he stayed there. So I just made sure, I just tried to keep him out of trouble. So it took pretty much 3 to 4 months. I never left the house in that time, because an adult had to be at the house at all times. So I would bring them out in the dining room. We would play bingo. We would play music and dance and play cards. And I would sit and talk to them. They would tell me, their life story. And just try. And then in the summertime, when it started getting warm, I would take them outside. We would barbecue. We would sit outside at the picnic tables, and we just, I just try to keep them active. And they would live there until the day they passed. So so my first wife, she ended up, I don't know, I never got a straight answer till this day. So she ended up, I was working nights, and so I was off, and she wanted to go out on a Saturday night, I think it was, with her girlfriends. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm off, and so I can sit with the girls, and you can go out with your girls for the night. She goes, no, I have a friend of mine that she really, really wants to watch the girls. She's really excited. I told her, yeah. So she was packing some clothes in their diaper bag, and so I ended up staying home, renting some movies, and my one of my younger brother-in-law, he would come up, and we would watch movies and wrestle around, and because he always looked up to his big brother, even though I was brother-in-law. He was really, really young, so he was always with me. Every time I went somewhere, he was with me. So she never came back. She never came home Saturday night, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Me and her mom never didn't hear from her for 2 weeks. I was going over to all her friends that I knew of, calling them if I had their number. It was just nothing. For 2 weeks, me or her mom didn't hear from her. So, and then finally she called her mom and told her, and her mom told me. So I ended up staying there at her mom's. Me and her mom, we got really close. My ex-mother-in-law, I still talk to her to this day. I still call her Ma. She calls me her cooking buddy, because we used to always cook together. All the holidays, we would cook dinner for the family. We would bake treats and cookies for Christmas, and fudge and pies and cookies and cakes and all that stuff. So I end up staying there at her house with her. She's like, you can stay as long as you want. So I think I gave her like $25 a month in rent for food, and I ate out the most of the time, but it was just for, to help pay for the utilities and stuff, and from when I was there. And then I ended up getting my own place. Got another job at an apartment for doing maintenance again, and got another apartment for half off. I got a 2-bedroom apartment this time. You know, back then I think I was paying like $240 a month for a 2-bedroom. It was regular $550 or something like that. So it wasn't a great big place, but I was the maintenance supervisor. There was only me, so my title was the maintenance supervisor. So I was pretty much my own boss. I was always working, and then I would get the girls every other weekend, so I got to spend a lot of time with them. But I had to drive forever to go pick them up after work on a Friday night, then take them back on Sunday. And then we ended up getting a divorce. Then I moved. By then, my best friend and his wife, they moved down to Arizona. And so after the divorce, I ended up moving down there with them. They're like, yeah, come down, stay with us. And Darren wants to go to college, and you can come down and help out while he goes to college and work part-time. And I'm like, okay. So I just packed my stuff and I moved down there. And then she wanted to get back together. I was like, I don't know. So I ended up moving. I was missing the girls. So I ended up moving back to Michigan. I was only gone for about a year. You know, recoup, try to start over, but it kind of really didn't work that way. So by then I was probably 23-ish, 24. So I ended up moving back to Michigan. And then that was pretty much a mistake, besides seeing my girls. So I ended up leaving again. Really couldn't find a decent job. Jobs were really hard to come by. So I saved. I was working 2 jobs, almost 3. Why are all these stickers gone? Oh, I know why. I'm de-kitting my last project, if you didn't notice. So I ended up saving some money. I ended up moving down to Florida. My ex-wife's brother, the one that was young, just under her. She's had 3 brothers, 2 younger brothers. I'm gonna need some stickers. So he wanted to go with me, so he was already over 18, so his mom was like, yeah, he's 18, he's an adult. He wanted to go see his dad. His dad lived in Florida. So we went down to Florida. And we ended up staying down there. They had a spare room. And then he stayed in the spare room, and then they had a travel trailer on the property. It had a built-on porch to it, because his in-laws, that's where they would stay when they would come down and visit. So I had my own bathroom. It had water. It had gas. Had my, it's just like in a studio apartment. It was one of those small travel trailers. I had a refrigerator. I had a stove. It ran on propane. I had, it didn't have, I didn't need a heater. It was Florida in the summer. So I paid rent. I think I was paying $25 a week. Got a job in town. Saved up some more money. And that's when I moved out to California. He ended up moving back to mommy. He got homesick with mommy because mommy used to take pretty good care of him. So he went back home. I stayed for a few more weeks. He said I was more than welcome to stay. Got to know my ex-father-in-law. And then that's when I moved out to California. Went to college. Started going to city college. Started off doing my general ed classes. I kind of moved through the years quite quickly, but there's not much to tell. And so I've been out here ever since. I joined the Navy when I was 37. I got married a couple times out here. I'm not going to speak about those. Those were very bad experiences. And I don't want to relive that time in my life. So I'll just leave those away. Those out. I figured that this would be a series. But since I jumped through the times quite quickly, I'm surprised. But I've been out here, like I was saying, in Southern Cal for 26 years. I've really enjoyed it. The time has gone by so fast. It's still hard for me to believe it's been 26 years. I absolutely love living out here. I hate being away from my kids. But I was, I was an over-the-road truck driver so I got my license in 2003. I joined the military and joined the Navy in 2007. I was 37 years old. I had to join, I went into the reserve. I had to get an age waiver to even go into the reserves. They would take a reservist up until the age of 41. But after 2 years, I had the option to go active duty, but I had to be in for 2 years. And I tried to go active duty. I finally got with someone that could do the paperwork, a recruiter that did the paperwork. And then I ended up getting deployed. Well, I kind of volunteered for it. But I didn't think I was going to be called out that quick, because it was like almost probably pretty much 2 weeks, because our chief was asking if anybody wanted to volunteer to deploy, because there was openings. And he said it would be a great opportunity. We could move up in rank. So I was like, well, I wasn't doing anything. So I was like, yeah. So I volunteered, even though I was working with the recruiter. And then I told him that I volunteered. He goes, great, better, even better. So he said, get with him when I got back. If I couldn't get in with a unit that needed spots to be filled, because being on active duty orders, it's easy to stay active duty, because when I was a reservist, we only did 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year. So I wasn't really on active duty orders when I did my drill weekends. But when I did my 2 weeks, we were on active duty orders. And 2 weeks is not long enough to get paperwork done, because there's a lot of things to do when you try to go from reserve to active duty. So he said a lot of guys, a lot of reservists will go on a deployment with the unit, because when you're on deployment, you're on active duty orders. And it's easier to stay on active duty than going back to reserve and then going back to active duty once you got accepted. And then they would ship you back over to boot camp. You didn't have to go back through boot camp, but back when I went to boot camp, they were actually closing down all the boot camp locations and just having it all in one location, which was Great Lakes, Illinois, just north of Chicago. So they were closing. They had another one that was in Pennsylvania. They were closing that one down, and there was another one, I can't remember where it was. There was 3 of them for boot camp for the Navy. So they were closing them all down and just having one central location, because they had 160 some acres, they said, up in Great Lakes. So they were actually rebuilding. They were tearing down the old buildings and building new buildings for the recruits. So they were just going to have it all in one central location. So when you went from reserve duty to active duty, they would send you back there for processing. You didn't have to go back in through boot camp. It's just, that's where they housed you. And if you needed any uniforms, that's where you got your uniform replacements. And that's where they just stationed you until they processed you to get you into a unit that needed a spot filled. So he said, instead of doing all that, I could go on deployment and see if I can get picked up by one of the units that had an open spot. And I would just transfer over. I would go back with that unit until all of my paperwork was fully processed, and then you're on active duty So the unit that I actually went on deployment was a regiment, which was really, really good, because we oversaw the battalions. The battalions was the bigger unit. They were the guys that went out in the field. The regiment, we were the administrative side. We oversaw the battalions. So I ended up going to Afghanistan in 2009. I was gone for a year. So I was gone all of 2000. I left late 2009 and I came back late of 2010. Because before we left for deployment, I had to go over there and train with that unit. We went to the firing range. We got requalified on the M16, the 9mm. So we went to the range twice. We did cultural training. We got all kinds. We had to do all kinds of physical, medical stuff. All kinds of stuff to get ready for deployment. We had to make sure we had our personal records all updated and stuff like that. Administrative stuff. So they put us through class for cultural training, medical training. We had to get gear issued. That all took time. So I was actually over with that unit in Gulfport, Mississippi for 3 months before we left. It was about 3 months, yeah. And then they flew us over. We started with a commercial flight, and we flew all the way to Iraq on a hired commercial flight. It was just military, no other civilians. It was just us military. There was 2 units on the whole plane, so I got to stretch out amongst 3 seats. We all got our own seat, row of seats, I should say. Because we couldn't have any civilians on the plane because the other unit that was with us, they had their weapons down in the cargo hold. So they didn't allow any civilians on the plane. So we stopped in to refuel. I think it was Bangor, Canada, or Bangor, Maine. I think it was right outside the Canadian border. We stopped for refuel there. So we were there for about an hour and a half or so. And then we flew into Germany. We offloaded the plane in Germany for a couple hours while they refueled and restocked the plane. And then we flew into Iraq. That's where we stayed until we got our Kevlar armor, our weapons, our ammo was all issued from there. From then on, we were armed for the rest of our trip. So wasn't always going around. We had to have no matter if we were dressed in shorts, our uniform, or what, we always had our weapons with us. So from Iraq, we stayed there for about a week, getting everything issued, and then they had to book our flight because we were on military flight from Iraq to Afghanistan. So we had to wait our turn. It was first come, first serve. So once we had enough once they got a plane that was big enough to hold our whole unit, because our whole unit traveled together, and with our luggage. We loaded our own plane, our own luggage onto big racks. So our luggage and our equipment was behind our seats. And we flew from Iraq to Bagram, Afghanistan. So that's where our plane was going. So we were jumping planes. So we ended up in Bagram, Afghanistan, North Afghanistan. We were going to the south of Afghanistan. We were going to Kandahar, which was in the south of Afghanistan. So we ended up staying there for, I think it was like 10 hours. So after we offloaded our baggage from that plane, 10 hours later, we were up and packing, ready to go, taking our stuff to the other plane. And then we flew into Afghanistan, and I was there for, I think we were there 7-8 months. Because the battalions, they stayed deployed for a year. Regiment, they stayed deployed for minimum 6 months. So the unit that was relieving us, they weren't passing their certification. So we ended up staying longer. So that's why we stayed until I think we headed back late September. So we stayed in Afghanistan through the summer. Oh my goodness, it was hot. And I'm only going to do this whip and chat for about an hour. I'm at 58, almost 58 minutes. So I'm almost done. So maybe I'll continue after I got out of the military until get closer up to the present time. So I'm almost, I was going to say I'm almost done. I'm about almost halfway. So I hope everybody got to enjoy my little story. I did leave a lot of bits and pieces out, but there wasn't, didn't miss much. Didn't miss much at all. So, let me just do this one. This one already has a sticker. I need to stick this one on a baggie. And I got, some of these baggies got holes in them because I peeled off the label. Okay, this one didn't have a hole. I can probably cover that hole. I tell you, a lot happened when I was in the military. Time just stood still, it seemed like. So I'll go ahead and continue on the next whip and chat from my deployment until the present time. I figured that this was going to take like, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 whip and chats, but nah, I just cut it down. Why not? I just do want to say one quick thing. I used to be very, very shy. I used to not ever talk until I was spoken to. Even when I came out to California. Once I got into the military, that's where things have changed. I'm more outspoken. I don't wait to be spoken to speak. I have made lots of friends while I've been here. I don't get to see them very often because we used to hang out country western dance every weekend, or at the park playing volleyball. And as the years gone by, we're all getting a little bit older, so we would just hang out at the club, at the country western club, dance, have a good old time on Friday nights, Saturday nights, spend time together, chit chat, getting caught up with everybody. Then afterwards, because they would only play country music up until like 12 or 12:30 at night. Then we would go down to the local diner and have a late dinner and chit chat with everybody and hang out. That was our Saturday nights. So that was our last night of the weekend. So we got to see everybody that we didn't get to talk to at the club, hang out a little bit, have something to eat before we went home. So, yeah. I'll continue on with the story from my deployment until see how far we get in my little story of just me. I hope everybody enjoyed. I hope everybody's having a great weekend. I'm going to try to get the video up, edited. Not much editing. I just got to, the typical opening and closing. Just got to add that stuff to the video. I'm going to get it up, have it released to my members, because that is part of their membership, for a 12-hour early access, and then I'll release it to the public probably tomorrow afternoon. So until the next video, I hope everybody's having a great weekend and staying healthy, having a good time crafting, spending time with the family. Until next time, we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.